Good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, the 22nd it is? 22nd it is? Yes.
Yeah, all day.
Thank you, Senator Allie. It is Monday, the 22nd of November, 2021. Trust everyone is up and about. We'd like to welcome all the broadcast entities who are joining us to carry Perspectives live, MTV, on air, and online. Thank you for your usual coverage. Mikey Live, TNR Communications, Sister Isle in Garriku. And thank you so very much. KG9, our own Perspectives page, Party Grenada. We welcome you to the broadcast. I am Brenda Baptiste. Trust everyone is waking up alive and well. And if you're not too well, hope it gets better during the day as your perspectives change. It is now time to introduce our special talk panel, our Senator Christopher Allie and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Brenda. Very good morning to our listeners and viewers again. Pleasure to be around again to chat about what is happening around us. I thought this week was not very eventful, Byron. And
yeah.
We had, I think the Minister of Works came on and spoke about the infrastructural works taking place, in particular the Molyneux Road and what is happening with that, and the importance of getting that Western Road up and running. And the target, of course, is next year, first quarter, probably towards the end of the first quarter, to see boots on the ground. And I think that is going to be a significant project for especially people who live on that side, and just movement in general and how we get things on for the Western Corridor is such an important corridor for movement of goods and people. So I thought that was the fact that they have timelines set and things are happening is going to be something positive coming, and I think that is something that is important. As well as some of the other projects. I mean, he have indicated that there are many projects taking place, so many places around the country with roads and other stuff. And I mean, of course, the St. John's River project that is moving along and that needs to get done quickly. What I haven't heard mentioned, though, is the fact that I know we're supposed to have cricket here in March.
It's March, yeah.
It's March, yeah, with the test match. And I know the stadium requires a significant amount of remedial works. I haven't heard anything mentioned about that, so probably that's something we could check and see what is happening with that, because this particular facility would need a lot of work to get it up to international standards ready for the match.
Yeah. Morning. Chris, cricket. In fact, I was on the grounds. There was a session I attended 2 weeks ago at the Players Pavilion, and I came onto the field and spoke to the groundsmen. And they are pretty optimistic in terms of having the grounds prepared for that time, grounds ready. But as you rightly said, the pavilion, I think there's with the chairs and other infrastructural renovations or repairs that needs to take place. But wow, 22nd of November. It's a big week, Chris. It's budget on Friday, actually. Expectations are high, depending on which sector you're in. But something happened last week, and I think I want to mention it. There was a signing agreement with SGU and the government of Grenada and GCNA.
Right.
Interesting, it was an arrangement using technology to determine the sex of the nutmeg before you plant it. For years or history, we plant 3 or 4 trees in a cluster, and you wait 5 years to determine whether it's a male or a female, and you remove the males or you keep one. It was wasteful. So now we're moving to, and it's the same PCR technology, I'm to understand. So that's a good thing.
I was so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Because my recent experience, planting a certain nutmeg trees, we got 70% male. 30%. So, I mean, it's one of those things that we are at a point in our development where I think we shouldn't be guessing this anymore, planting in triangles, and hoping one is a female versus.
I mean, it's a cultural thing as well that in these isles in the Caribbean and so on, research and development is not a big thing that we do. But a territory like ours that has the resource of St. George's University for over 40 years. I mean, really and truly, we are behind. And the use of wind refuge into research and all of that. It is great to see. When I saw that, I was like, wait to
Yeah.
go. You know, it was pretty exciting news.
And
I thought to myself, oh, look at the efficiency and how much. So I trust they continue to work along, not just on nutmegs, but many other things that it can guide us on in terms of the research, the science, and all of that. So we get better at what we do and the things that drive
Well, I mean, the price of nutmegs now is driving that as well.
Well,
Because of what
absolutely.
is happening in Indonesia
Absolutely.
with COVID and
It's
all
a good,
that.
it's a good movement.
We,
But, you know, we
our
always
nutmeg
behind. We're always playing
behind.
catch up. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that can be done with the nutmeg. I mean, I don't want to go there, Byron know my passion. So let's leave it there.
Let's leave it there. Fine. But the point I want to, Chris, I want to, Brenda, you know, the question of health insurance is so important. I know that the government is pursuing this national health insurance scheme, and we haven't had an update for some time. Maybe at the budget we'll get some status on it. But for the public, you know, you can purchase private health insurance. But it's interesting that once you reach 70, a lot of the insurance companies remove you. You know, you're no longer viable, you're no longer profitable for them. This is not just reckless, but I find it inhumane, because this is the time when a person, because you've been in health insurance like 40 years, you had minor things, maybe a glasses or tooth cleaning. But it is when you're aged, you're expected to have more health matters, and therefore that's when health insurance, you can't do this in the United States or most countries I know of.
It's
mandatory.
discriminatory.
So it's, I find it's inhumane, and I think, and I wouldn't say reckless here, but it's irresponsible on the part of these companies to operate in that manner.
But I think, I mean, not that I'm defending insurances, but part of the concern here is risk. As you age.
And as you
Balancing
age,
the risk,
yeah.
balancing the risk with the cost
Yeah.
is one of the things.
And as you
that,
age, your risk becomes higher.
That's right. So they look at those stats, and you know, I agree to you. It's something they should consider. What they do when you hit 60 is they lower your benefits.
Yeah.
But at 70, as you say, they remove you totally.
Totally.
And I
Increase
think-
your premium if necessary. if the
Yeah, and
risk
probably
is high.
that's what they need to look at.
Yeah.
And wait, and you know, insurances in the region, as relates to health, probably something they need to consider pooling as well, because you know, one major insurance company taking the brunt of it maybe not the way to go.
Yeah.
And if NHI comes on, National Health Insurance, well, then that would help.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly, for those of us who have more serious issues, you need the insurance help to guide you through. So I think it's a good point,
Yeah.
a good area for us to start a discussion on.
Of course.
Have the insurance people come in and give their side of the story to
yeah.
understand what is really happening and why they won't want to go there.
Yeah.
And or if they want to go there, how they could possibly go there.
Do that.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
The other thing I thought that happened this week too is the level of scamming that's happening now on the various platforms, and those scammers sending out
Scamming and phishing.
a lot of phishing and things going on with that. And you know, I thought FIU had to get involved, and they came out and made announcements on this. And those of us
There was
in the
one
business
making the
community-
rounds purported to be from Republic Bank.
That's right. That's right. And people fall victim to these
But what's
Yes,
the
people
key
did.
to this? What's the key to this, Chris, in terms of person should know what mails you don't open, what mails you ignore?
Well,
because it would happen.
It starts with you, first of all, educating yourself about what the different scams are. Phishing, for example. And these guys or these people will send out things to get information from you. That's the most important thing. They want personal information so that they could use it and exploit it and do things with it that they could get financial gain from. So the first thing you have to do is, in my view, if you see an email from something that sounds too good to be true, it's not.
Not true.
The other thing is, you get an email from somebody you don't know, don't open it. Simple little things like
simple.
that. I mean, and there's others you could use, you know. So you pay attention to those things. I get a download of emails from all kind of sources that you're not clear about, and once I'm not clear.
You ever got those from Africa that tells you, look, there's a windfall. If you respond, you get the.
I never take part in a bingo where you could win something.
Exactly.
Yeah, something that's overlooked a lot, and it may sound trite, but it's normally the giveaway with these things is the spelling.
Yeah.
And where there are logos attached is the authenticity of the logo.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if Republic Bank or First Caribbean International, if they send you your statements, or they send you birthday greetings, whatever, you have an idea of what their mail looks like.
Yeah.
So what is encouraged, and I had to do this sometime last year with First Caribbean when there were some mails going out that were not from them at all. So I was able to go back, look at their logo, look at everything, match everything, even the resolution, the color on the logo, that from the scammer was lighter, and they spelled Caribbean wrong. And so, it's all these little things you just have to pay attention to. Someone comes into your Facebook Messenger or your WhatsApp with something, and let's say it might be Chris Allie that you're familiar with, and they say, "Oh, Byron, have you seen this?" There's always this question to get you to react immediately, because these people are smart. They're playing with your psyche. So, "Oh, Byron, have you seen this?" And your response or you don't respond, or you find Chris another way and ask, did you send something to my inbox? You don't go clicking on it, because have you seen this? There's an image there or a link, and you click on it and immediately you're compromised. So you really have to be very careful.
Another major thing that they go after is people's greed. You understand? And to want of making easy money or getting easy gain. That they play on that, and they prey on that as a matter of fact.
And they play a lot on the elderly too.
And the elderly don't pay attention like Brenda. They can't distinguish between. So I mean, the simple thing is you never hear about this place. You never been. You never been in anything. Just
because we might think we laugh and we think, but if you speak to the FIU, they would tell you about a number of Grenadians that have gotten that just to put it in Grenadian language, that get catch.
It's not a joke. But
so it is not trite at all.
And at this time of the year, the frequency seems to increase, because they're trying. I suppose people tend to be a little more
absolutely
attention to detail, because you're in this kind of festive mood. And
but read NHI though. Last night, in the Prime Minister's in our engagement with the Prime Minister, he did allude to the NHI, that they are coming. It's going to be, we're going to be hearing more about it soon.
So yes, conversation with the Prime Minister, Brenda. Of course, you were there. We looked at you. We looked at the whole interview, the conversation. What it was, a couple of takeaways, Brenda. Chris, I know you were somewhere else during that time.
Yes, unfortunately.
I'm not going to expose here where you were.
He'll go back and look at it to catch up.
I was trying to do that last night.
But some of the, it was a kind of preamble towards coming. You picked up a few things. One is we are likely to see some fixed costs for gasoline, for example.
Yes.
And that's a great thing.
Yes.
Some adjustment with VAT regarding reducing energy costs for electricity. There's something not details provided, but you get the picture that's going to be addressed. I think also election timing, I thought was interesting. What he did say, look, if you know me, I don't go to the end. He said no, he didn't say when, but look.
You're a very good listener.
Don't expect me to go at the end. I think what was also interesting in that of succession, because this did come up. This was an early question from prospective host, and did he answer it? Yes, no, yes. In that alluding to the fact that well, if you look carefully, you will see it. Call some names and. So yes, to some extent, but it wasn't for me emphatic. It wasn't. Maybe there's more as you. If I'm going to look at it again, and maybe I'll pick up more. I don't know, but at this time, But he was talking about ageism, and that's not the issue of leadership. Leadership is about vision and that type of thing.
And you're correct about that.
And I think one of the things he addressed too, that's something we'll be looking at, is contracts for and pensions relating to workers and the whole strategy to have it even, in terms of not having two sets of workers, and two different benefits. So these are the issues addressed. But I thought it was interesting. What else I picked up? pension, again, with public workers, pointing out that, I mean, this isn't registered with me before, but a public worker now retiring can, in fact, one signing can qualify for 70% of his or her existing salary, which I think is, and when you compare to what was before, I think it was 60, maybe 67 or 66%, you know. So some interesting point, oil and gas, Chris, I think also came up in that the issue of oil and gas, what we learned is not as viable now compared to 5 or 10 years ago. So mainly due to the question of the environmental issues, fossil fuel, and more so the investment costs. In other words, financiers are reluctant, or certainly looking closely at whether it is the way to go. So I think this
Of course, I think
interesting.
the oil and gas is definitely going to be a question that we'll be facing
Yeah.
as to how they exploit and what. For us, I mean, if we're talking about energy and transforming Grenada to the engines to burn natural gas instead of diesel, I think that is a way for us to go as quickly as we can, because that will significantly reduce the cost for energy. And I think their 2030 goals that was just put out in COP26 have identified the burning of fuel for production of electricity and transportation as the two areas they want to have significant reductions by 2030. So those are areas, I mean, the electric vehicles, what happens with that, and how we move ahead, the whole issue of climate change, which I think is a huge topic that we probably one day perspectives will have the gentleman who just came out from
Minister
Glasgow,
Steele. Yeah.
Minister Steele and
Trevor
Dr.
Thompson.
Spencer Thomas and so on
Yeah.
to talk about, you know, the rhythms that came out in COP26 and where we're going with that, because I think that is such a huge thing for our island. And that is an area that I would like to see develop. But public health, I mean, when you listen to the speech from our Governor General, public health was one of the areas that they highlighted as something they would significantly look at as we go forward. Because it's not just COVID, there may be other things coming to our way in the generations to come, and public health now is no longer, you know, something in the side that you thought of. It's only when you have a crisis you look at public health. Now it's becoming a serious issue, and that is something I think they will spend time on in the budget, as well as education. What is happening in education, how it's transforming our young people, the ups and the downs, you know, the pros and the cons of blended learning versus face-to-face, and will we ever go back to full face-to-face?
Right. There was a question, I posed a question to him about education, and in there he did throw in as well all that we would see, you know, I guess they are asking themselves the question to come up with policy as to whether or not the current construct works for where we're going to dovetail in the future. You know, whether 14 CXCs is what we should be aiming to, rather than, you know, the skills and the cognitive learning and all these other things. So he did say we'd hear more about it from the Minister of Education, but did make some statements on it.
I think the whole COVID crisis have just changed our approach, both business and government, and how we strategically approach things.
It's a new world, and it has to be fashioned for the new way of living.
I mean, in business, I could tell you that we have, you know, strategically we have changed, and we're looking at things quite differently.
You must.
Not only on the digitization side, but especially on the human resource side, and how you develop your human resource to deal with the challenges that we foresee may come as a result of the expectations of the new customer.
And isn't that the most difficult part? Because as human beings, we are creatures of habit. And so we are used to certain things. As we engage, you hear everybody saying, we're waiting, well, when things get back to normal. Which normal?
Yeah.
So it is taking some time. And I think that is going to be the hardest part. Because even in engaging in coming up with policies and whatever, people still have the expectations of prior 2019, prior December 2019, as before COVID hit. But really and truly, some of these things have outlived their usefulness. We are now in a new dispensation.
And that's the thing, to get the human, which I mean, we're not talking about robots here now, we are all human.
Correct.
We have to, of course, change how we perceive and do things down the road. in
I
order
think
to
that's the
effect
most
the change.
difficult thing.
So if we don't internalize the change, we can't
Yeah.
effect it, and that's part of the
I think
challenge for us
that's
in
going to be the
HR,
most difficult thing
in
moving
business.
forward.
How you get
Yeah, I think
that,
one of the contradiction that's coming up in the budget that's going to feature is finance, you know, because at one hand, I think the public is asking to deal with increased cost of living, but at the same time, government anticipate will have reduced revenues. Yeah, this is clearly so. How do you balance this? How do you know that's going to be really the numbers?
and Byron, from where I sit,
That was
I
alluded
think
to a lot.
Yeah.
last
I think we
evening.
need to open up.
Yeah.
You know, this 12 to 4.
Even with
curfew-
Carriacou, even with the present development,
Yeah,
Chris, you
but
think
it's-
we
it's-
should open
it's-
up? How do you
it's-
see? Well, what's
It's-
happening
the
in
Caribbean
Carriacou?
thing is
Are
in
we
one
anticipating
little
another?
cluster, but they know the science says that every time we get a lull, you'll see something come back and infections, and unfortunately it's with the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So the way to go is vaccine. The world is in a surge right now. When you look worldwide, what's happening in Europe,
Yeah.
what's happening in Trinidad, everybody seems to be surging. So the issue for me here is that in our case, for example, 12 to 4. I mean, I was at over the weekend. I passed by Wall Street, and when you saw the amount of people that were on Wall Street, very few of them have on masks. And at the times, 11, 30 minutes to 12. I know none of them couldn't get home before curfew unless all of them was living in Monument.
Maybe they are, Chris.
You understand? So, I mean,
Or
clearly.
maybe the option of staying there.
But
You know, staying
I
in
didn't
my
think about
car,
that, Brenda.
staying in until the curfew
Until
ends.
4 o'clock.
I mean, come on, there's excitement and everything.
The midnight is more psychological factor, you know. It's like,
Listen, midnight needs to be gone.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to pretend. It needs to be gone.
Yeah.
And I tried my best last night with the Prime Minister. He looked as if he was laughing at me at a time. But that's all right. I spoke for many.
Yeah.
Midnight
Yeah,
needs
you
to be
really
gone.
need to
Yeah.
understand the value of it now. I
Yeah.
think that is the key. I know there's a psychological thing,
Yeah.
but in terms of control and the virus, I'm not sure that
It
and the
helps,
community
yeah.
spread, that's always a question. So
Yeah.
I think the issue here probably is more police trying to control what happens, and, you know, and movement and so on. But
Yeah,
it's
but that's
gonna
only
be-
one aspect of
Yeah.
it.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you know, when you look, I mean, the positive side of this to me is the average person is happy that we have a certain level of freedom now, and we could go there
Yeah.
and spend, and we can go there and enjoy each other's company, even though, you know, you still have to pay attention to the protocols. But, and then you're seeing this thing about the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. The vaccinated people are definitely given privileges that the unvaccinated does not have. So I went to a restaurant last week, one evening, to dine with a friend, and you know, the first thing the people asked for, could I see your vaccination card?
Yeah.
And they were very clear about it.
And your ID.
Yeah, and you couldn't enter the facility and dine unless
Yeah, but
you
Chris,
could
look
produce
at
it.
what's
Yeah,
happening
because
around.
some restaurants are firmer. They don't only want to see your card. They want to see your
Picture.
ID.
Yeah.
And the ID, I mean, having experienced this, I would just advise everyone that they're the ones who are vaccinated and have their card, the ID you should use is the ID you use when you got vaccinated.
Yeah.
That helps because there's some people that are really rigid about it
Yeah.
because apparently there are checks of the establishments to see what they're doing.
So
So,
it's just one of those things.
But
that's
Chris, we have to be
developing.
mindful about what's happening around us also. Trinidad, other
Yes,
islands,
yes,
Europe.
So listener, we're gonna just sit down and watch Trinidad and who, and we won't open up the place.
But we open up, I mean,
You know, I find you're opening up as well, Brenda. So at the end of the day, I think we have to learn to live with this thing.
Listen, we
Yeah.
keep saying about the learning to live part, but the thing about it is,
Yeah.
I mean, how would you know if you don't venture out, right? I am not saying that we be reckless, that we
Yeah.
be careless.
Yeah.
Let us just bear in mind that we have been confined, and maybe confined is a strong word, but really and truly, the pandemic really put us in a state of that. And psychologically, economically, emotionally, sociologically, all the collies, we are stretched thin.
Yeah.
And it is impacting. And so if you get a little breathing space that you can manage. I mean, some of our people are going too far and they've gone back into some, I must say, I have to be responsible and say this, have gone back into a state of complacency. We cannot afford that. All we had in September was our first wave. I mean, look, Barbados, they're on their third wave. Trinidad, likewise. And they're right next door. All we had in September, August, September, that was our first. So, and we had the epidemiologist, Sincere, last week, telling us, expect our second wave in the new year. So we have to be careful during this period. But we can't just sit down here and contemplate safety and just figure, okay, well, 12 o'clock it is, still we dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, the other side of this is how businesses are going to deal with unvaccinated staff members in the new year and what is going to happen.
Well, Chris, let's take a democratic vote on that. Those in favor of maintaining the midnight curfew, raise their hands, you know.
I don't have no hand to raise. Yeah, I think that's another big SGU situation, and the model there for businesses are paying close attention to what is happening there. And I think as we transition into the new year, businesses are going to get a little more rigid with their unvaccinated staff members, either not necessarily going to SGU as it is, but you will see that evolving with businesses. Unvaccinated staff members will have to make decisions as to how they transgress. Because the reality for us in business and the risk is that, you know, we face a serious risk of you coming into the environment and threatening the safety of the environment, which we as employers have to ensure that there is some level of protection, and it can be criminal in our case. So it will, I think, tighten as we transition into the new year. So staff members who are still on the fence will have to get themselves prepared to deal with what is going to happen, because I think as we transition into the new year, you're going to see more rigidity of people being vaccinated, and if you choose not to, what may or may not happen. So it is something that I think we have to pay some attention to.
It's a new job
You're an
requirement.
engineer, you know what happens with rigidity, right?
Yes, that's why we build in flexibility.
It's a new job requirement. You go to a job now, and to be vaccinated is a requirement. You don't apply if you.
That's good.
I'd just like to highlight something that someone sent me last evening, and it is. I don't think they sent me the whole thing, but anyway, they sent me an excerpt and they say, Brenda, what are your thoughts on this? It is, when I saw it, I said, what's the background of this? And they said, oh, something in a newspaper. And the comment was, I think the piece in the newspaper was about, more about the NDC and what they were doing and what they should do and that kind of thing. The person probably was giving advice to the NDC, but the part they sent to me and asked all my thoughts on this, some of the thoughts I have on it I can't air here because it wouldn't be good for television or for radio, but I'll say this. In 2021, in Grenada post-COVID 2021, for someone to be putting in, open language, a newspaper, of that Lancipine white, you know, that kind of statement, actually writing, because they're making the point that, you know, when about leadership types and the kind of people you should go to and the kind of people you should engage. Let me say this. You see this classism thing? That's not making any sense. In 2021, Lancipine whites are Grenadians. Our ethnicity is of all kinds. European, Indian, Amerindian, just name it. So they are Grenadians. So I don't see any point why we have to be writing things about Lancipine, the address, and then white, right? How would we like it if we say Carenage blacks, Tivoli ghetto? Nobody likes that. There's no point in that. We just keep the language. Okay, you don't everything is not for everybody. You may not like mangoes, you may not like plums, but at least let's just be respectful. Let's just be decent. Let's just be fair. Let's just stop. We already have yellow, green. Now we have vax on vax, right? We have fat, tin. We just continue down the path of divisiveness. Well, when will it explode? At what point?
Well, you know, Brenda, at the end of the day, it's a humanistic point of view. And I don't know if that person who wrote that article drove through Lansapine, they realized there are very few Lansapine sites they put it. But that being said, I don't think I want to give that volume and time. I think it's just, as you say, it's just to call it out and let us move past that. And Grenada, you know, from all of the islands, we have never been into this racism thing as we've seen Guyana and other territories, separation between Negroes and Indians and so on. We have always had, and you know, when you look at our history, the people in Sates, and Guave and those that came to St. George were the ones for the estate owners and so on. Yeah. So I already know that person obviously
rich Grenadians.
Move on.
Yeah.
We move on.
Yeah. We move on. That's that's just
they are out
good for
of touch.
out, but I mean,
Out
clearly,
of touch.
you know. But it is what it is about this thing about that.
Totally out of touch. And these are the things we have to just reject in their fullness. Anyway, this is Perspective. When we come back, we'll introduce our special guest panelists. We take a break. We'll be right back.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
More than 5 million people dying from COVID-19. And we know that this certainly is an underestimate of the true number of people who have died. We certainly don't know yet the true toll that this pandemic has taken. These 5 million people, these lives, these livelihoods, parents, children, aunts, uncles, friends. Each person has a family. Each person has a story. It's been 2 weeks at the global level where we're starting to see cases increase again. Those who haven't had access to the vaccine are left vulnerable to getting severe disease and dying. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing cases among those who are not protected. We're seeing deaths among those who are not protected. And more than 50,000 people a week are dying from COVID-19. We do need to reflect on the milestone that we have now and work as hard as we possibly can to make sure that number does not keep increasing. We have to make some changes. And if we don't do this now, when will we?
Welcome back to Perspectives. If you're just joining us this morning, welcome to the broadcast. This morning, our special guest panelist is a really good Grenadian. You say service, and this man's name is right next to it. And all the gamut, from finance to sports to culture, you just name it. Michael Archibald, he's a retired banker with retired, I'm too sure about the retirement part, but maybe retired from going into the bank 8 to 4 on a daily basis. He has over 40 years in the industry, and he's our special guest panelist this morning. So we welcome to Perspectives, Mr. Michael B.M. Archibald, OBE. Good morning.
Thank you, Brenda, and I'm happy to be here with you again.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you. All right. First of all, it's welcome, and see you wearing your wonderful pink shirt. They say real men wear pink. Whatever that means.
I won't go there.
That's it's good to go there.
Yeah.
Yes. So, well, first of all, congratulations on you're the newly minted director on Grenada board. So thanks for that. I think it's exciting news from what we know of you and your experience. I think Grenada will be well served by you being on there. So congratulations.
Thank
to
you. Thank
sir.
you, Brenda. I
Right.
hope to give up my knowledge, my experience,
Yeah.
and whatever could contribute to what's going on.
Absolutely. And this Grenada we love, so more of us need to step forward in whatever capacity and do so. So here we are, COVID, all of that, and we really want you to give us some money advice and coping advice this morning. It's a time of the year that's coming up. There's so many expectations about, people just feel this thing about Christmas and the end of the year and all of that, just coming out of our first COVID wave and just the long time we've had. If you had to give any advice to business on the one hand about coping during this period or how to jumpstart during this period, and to the general public as a whole as to the sort of habits maybe we should be inculcating more of, what would that be?
Let's look at business first, Brenda. And before I attempt to give advice or really suggestions, actually some of you mentioned some already this morning. Think about what business has gone through in the last year and a half and what is back to the year coming. On the revenue side, revenues have declined in almost every business, in some cases by 50%. We're almost into what used to be called statistically a depression. So businesses are facing a situation, and I want to be clear, that situation has not stopped. It will continue for a while, where the revenues have declined in some cases by 50%. On the other side, your expenses look like it's going up significantly because inflation pressures from fuel. We also have some inflation pressures from the logistics problems getting your goods done here. They don't know the proper name chain.
Supply chain.
Supply chain. And that, I think, is going to be with us for a while. But the real problem is going to be. So businesses, small, large, medium, are facing a situation where their revenues are down and there's serious inflation costs. On top of that, it looks as if the whole banking environment is included. Because when things are uncertain, banks tend to become. So you might have a tightening of credit conditions. I haven't seen it yet, but it is possible, and that could involve also some increases in interest. So this is what companies are facing. So in the face of that, people have to sit down and really look at their business. And the first thing I want to do.
From Mr. Archibald, just need to take a quick break and deal with a technical issue. We'll be right back. Stay close. We'll be right back.
More than 5 million people dying from COVID-19. And we know that this certainly is an underestimate of the true number of people who have died. We certainly don't know yet the true toll that this pandemic has taken. These 5 million people, these lives, these livelihoods, parents, children, aunts, uncles, friends. Each person has a family. Each person has a story. It's been 2 weeks at the global level where we're starting to see cases increase again. Those who haven't had access to the vaccine are left vulnerable to getting severe disease and dying, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing cases among those who are not protected. We're seeing deaths among those who are not protected, and more than 50,000 people a week are dying from COVID-19. We do need to reflect on the milestone that we have now and work as hard as we possibly can to make sure that number does not keep increasing. We have to make some changes. And if we don't do this now, when will we?
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy. To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal. When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
Thanks for your indulgence. Viewers, welcome back to Perspective. We just had to sort out a quick technical issue so we can improve the quality of the audio on Mr. Archibald, who we go right back to start from the top, just in case you missed something.
Okay, Brenda, thank you. Let's look at what businesses have been facing over the last 2 years and will be facing in my mind for at least another year or two going forward. You have an environment in which your revenues are declining, and almost every business that we can think of, revenue has dropped, in some cases by 50%. A lot of it is because people are staying home, people have lost their jobs, whatever, but revenue has declined significantly. At the same time that revenue has declined, there are very significant inflation pressures coming from the other side of your operations, on the cost side. And those pressures come mainly from fuel costs, which has been increasing significantly. You also have logistical issues trying to get your goods down to your business place, and also you have demand and supply issues. So you have cost inflation pressures coming at one side of the business, and on the other side, your revenues at the same time are declining. So you're facing business people are facing a very difficult situation. And I would suggest to business places that you sit down and think, really look into the future and realize that this is going to continue for a little while. What suggestions one has? The first one I have is one we tend to forget, and people don't think about it when you're talking about business, is I think the small businessman, the medium businessman, even the large business, must think of their own personal health first and foremost. We get so involved in what we're doing in the business absorbs us, ties us up, that we forget our own personal health. And I'm talking about physical health and mental health. I think each individual who is running a business, well, each individual generally, but we're talking about business, must think your diet, your exercise, your vaccine, etc., and take care of yourself. Because it's only when you take care of yourself, you could take care of your business, you could take care of your family, etc. That's the first thing. The second suggestion I would like to make has to do with innovation. We can no longer sit down and say business as usual. We have to innovate. The idea of simply just opening at 8 o'clock, closing at 4, the idea of always having a big office, bricks and mortar, that is thinking, that is changing. We have to innovate. We have to do things differently. And whether you're selling bread or you're selling cars, we have to start thinking differently. Yeah. Second point I'm thinking is that we have to actually think of restructuring our businesses completely. Now, a lot of what we're talking about is linked together. Innovation, restructuring. This is how I did business for the last 20 or 30 years. You can't sit and continue to think that way. And if we look at a lot of our businesses, we've seen it happening right here. Of course, it will always happen overseas, but you've seen it happening right here. Look at our restaurants. Look at our supermarkets. You can sit at home now and have your goods delivered straight to your house because the supermarket has recognized that it cannot be business as usual. And they're innovating. They're looking at their entire business model and seeing how can I change that business model to suit the present circumstances, what has happened to us now. Right. We have to stop thinking of only going back to this bread and this brick and mortar and office. We have businesses now that exist on the back of a bike. And that is how we have to think. I was sitting with my brother and his daughters the other day talking, and we got hungry. So thinking in the old way, myself and my brother thinking, well, we ought to get up and go and find something to go. His daughter just pulled out her phone, she pap, 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 and in half an hour, food was delivered.
Yeah.
think about that for a moment. So the two older heads were there thinking, oh God, we got to get in the car, and we got to do this. And she didn't think. She didn't even have to think. Boom. And this stuff was delivered. And there's this guy arriving with a bike. It sounds foolish, but it's part and parcel of what is happening and what must happen if your business is to survive in the present circumstances. Another point I want to suggest before I pause is we have to get leaner. Businesses have to get leaner. We have to eliminate surplus, eliminate extras. And I know that is going to impact, I'm not only talking about human resources here, entire business. Your business has to get leaner than it was. And all waste has to be expunged from your business. Start thinking about all those things. They're all linked together.
Just going to that a little bit. You mentioned that you're not only talking about human, but normally whenever people think about businesses getting leaner, that's the first place they often go to. So what are the other areas, specific areas in which the businesses can get leaner?
Spending. There's a lot of waste in spending in businesses, you know. You have to spend, you have to make sure that your money is put where it gets the most bang for the buck. Spending is usually, but it all comes down to spending, whether you're spending on people, you're spending on your goods. A lot of businesses, for instance, have too much inventory. A lot of small businesses have too much inventory. Now, in a case where we have supply chain problems, it is going to be helpful to have more inventory because you don't know when the next ship is going to arrive. But generally speaking, and we're going to get rid of this supply chain thing by first quarter of next year. Your business has to be lean. If you have too much inventory, your inventory is a cost. First, to buy the inventory. Secondly, to carry the inventory, it's a cost.
Right. As we're on inventory, now that we're getting into a period where businesses are likely to be, trying to increase their inventory based on everything you've mentioned, the ability for us to spend, banks and their lending, so on and so forth. What do you advise, especially small businesses, how to handle and manage, so to speak, their inventory at this time of the year?
They have to look at their history. What has happened to their business for the last 2 or 3 years? When has been the period when you have the most sales? When the period you have less sales? Which items are moving fast? Which items are moving slow? And make some hard decisions. We make sentimental decisions. I am a businessman and I'm selling cups and I kind of like that cup. So I have a lot of it. But that's not the cup that is moving. The cup that is moving might be one that I personally like. So I have to make a business decision and have inventory, the one that is moving and not the one that I happen to like. And you would be surprised, Brenda, when you talk about how often you see that simple thing, especially with small business people. And everything I talked about links back to technology. We have to rely more on technology. And we are seeing it already. So guess what I'm saying, generally speaking? Take care of your own health, first and foremost. Secondly, stop thinking of business as usual. Start thinking of how can I change my business model to suit the changes that are happening, to suit the demands of the new, because the customer is changing.
Yeah.
And you see this thing where we had to stay home for a month and a lot of people stayed home for a year. The entire view of how they live has changed.
Absolutely.
The entire view of what they want from you, the businessman, has changed. So it's a time of upheaval. And usually upheaval, while there's chaos, there's also change for the good. And you want to make sure as a business person that the changes that are taking place benefit you. You ride those changes and you don't sit back and say, this is how I have always done it. And therefore I'm going to continue to do it. That's it, the most fundamental thing I think I wanted to.
Senator Allie?
Oh, well, I certainly agree with Mr. Archibald on mostly everything that he has said there. I think one of the greater challenges we also face in business is the issue of, I put it simply as conflict of interest, because here we are asked to strategize. And, normally when we strategize at business, we tend to do 2 and 3 year plans to look forward to see how the environment has changed, how we need to react to this, or try to be proactive and look ahead to make the changes even before they come. But what this new pandemic and COVID has shown us, and that's where the conflict is the level of uncertainty in predicting forward. And how you build that into your models and into your business model is going to be the challenge for us as bigger businesses. But could you imagine a small business, a mom and pop, with 2-3 people that don't have data to understand what is happening, as Michael pointed out, which commodity sells better. That requires you to pay attention to detail and the data. Most of the mom and pop businesses are engaged in just surviving, and surviving from the point of view, you are the production person, you are the sales and marketing person, you are also the finance person, is all you doing everything. So now to pay attention to the data and to see exactly how more efficient your business could become based on what you do is the challenge that they're going to face in a big way. And as Michael pointed out, because of the speed which things are changing in this new environment, spurred on by technology, obviously is another challenge, the small and medium size. How do they keep up or react to that speed? That to me is also a major challenge. But I think the most important thing I'm hearing is, this thing about work-life balance. There's a new term for it now, Michael, about paying attention to your personal and what you do. I think is so important because you need a greater clarity of mind now to address the challenges that we face. And that could only come from the fact that you must pay attention to that work-life balance, your health, your family, those of us who believe in a spiritual side. All of that is part of your work-life balance. And it grows us, I think. Those of us who are leaders in our businesses, whether you a business of 3 people, but all of us have leadership roles in different things. And this is where the challenge comes to me in how we do that. But my question to Michael and his view on this is, one of the things that we see coming up now is disruptors and the identification of disruptors for business. So take, for example, tourism. The biggest disruptor in the tourism industry has been A&B. And how do we as businesses look forward to understand where the next disruption is going to come to our model? And how do we react to that and deal with that? What is your views on it?
I don't think there's any one way for you to identify what the next disruptor is. You simply have to pay attention. You have to read. You have to look at the news. You just have to be open. I think that's probably the best way I can put it. You have to be open to new ideas, new suggestions. Some of them sound crazy like hell. Look at Uber.
Yes, another major disruptor.
I mean, geez. If you had told people 5 years ago, 10 years ago that you'd be able to just call, they'd say you're crazy. So you have to be open. You have to welcome new ideas. Somebody come and they say something and it sounds foolish. You can't just throw it out. You have to pay attention to the news. You have to be, see what is going on around you all the time and talk to young people. And I find young people say things, they imagine things, and they see things because they're born in a different generation from a lot of us.
Yeah.
Listen to them. Don't discard what they're saying. I want to go back to one point that you made that I thought was so important. I think the days when the mom and pop could just keep the information in their head has gone. Given the cost of a laptop now, and what is that accounting thing that everybody uses? QuickBooks. I want to suggest to every business person that they have a laptop with QuickBooks or something similar to QuickBooks.
Right.
Put the information in. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to have the information in. What is your revenue? How much you sold today? Or how much you sold this month? What is your cost at the bottom? So, and then you can look back at that and you would be surprised if you carefully look back at that, what that information can tell you 6 months down the road, a year down the road.
Establish trends.
And give you then guidance as going forward. Every big business has it. But we tend to say, I'm a small business, man. I have a little notebook there.
It's called mining the data.
Yeah.
I always say in our program, Pointy, that, in the past, when I was on marketing board, there's always this complaints that they sell and they buy at low prices. And I always said to farmers, can you tell me what it costs a pound of tomatoes to produce?
No, they don't.
and 90% of them cannot. So if I offer you $3 a pound, how you know my price is a bad price to you? You don't, because you don't understand what is the cost of production for yourself. And we don't take time to understand that we need to have that information so that when I come to, I could say, listen, I can't accept 3 because it's costing me $3.50. Right? And that is agriculture is an area where the mining of the data, thinking of the data is critical for us as a sector.
It's the direction.
And that's the same point that you're making.
Yeah.
How do our farmers use technology to change agriculture and get young people interested? It's no longer about the fork and the hoe and the
And you know, the farmer himself, if he's an older person, I struggle with technology, right? But my son, they don't.
No.
And I might be a farmer and I might struggle with technology, but I might have a son who can put in the data for me.
That's right.
If you have a small business, you can have somebody that you write the data, how much I sold today, how much I sold yesterday, what salary I paid, what my electricity bill was in a notebook, and hand it to one of these young people, and then I pay it for you.
But that requires a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Because remember, typically we are not people who share.
Yeah.
We are people who is my business, it stay in my head, in my place,
Brenda,
in my corner.
Brenda, that is such a big and important issue.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of the family businesses, they have got to a certain level and they can't go any further. And what they need to do is to bring in some professionals. And the first thing, when you suggest that they bring in professionals, you know what they say? They're going to know my business.
Yeah.
You need an accountant, or if not a highly qualified, for at least a financial or accounting officer, somebody who's done the first part of whatever it is. And the first thing you hear is me, they're going to know my business. No business has grown and developed and taken leaps and bounds without other people coming in who have specific training and specific knowledge. You got to use that. And we got to get past that thinking of, this is my business. Along with that, many businesses need equity. Small businesses need it for them to become big businesses. But most of us don't have the money, the equity ourselves. So then we go to the bank and the bank says, okay, I'm going to give you 60% or 70% and you have to have equity. The only place that equity could come from is from other people.
Cheap.
Yeah.
And it's either other people, it could be family members, it could be friends. We have to open our businesses now to accept and look for equity from outside sources that will help us then attract the major financing we need from the bank or whoever. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here 10 years from now, as we are now, cussing the banks, cussing the circumstances, cussing everybody, because we are saying, I have 10,000. I really need 50, but the bank says I need 20. So where that other, I don't have that other topics.
Right.
Whereas I can sit with other people to get that other 10. So I'm sharing a little piece of my business, but for a long-term benefit. And this comes back to your point of this thing about this is mine and nobody else must own it.
Mr. Campbell?
Yeah. Look, I'm happy about you making a link with businesses and health, and I'm not going to say more than, but I'm pleased. That's the best news, best information. And I think we need to really broadcast this. Ponte, you've been a career banker your life. There's some developments, there's some changes in the sector, and I like your thoughts on it. I want to pull out about 2 at least. One, we have the situation where we no longer have or going to have any international banks operating in Grenada, that the indigenous bank have in fact bought over or is in the process of doing this. And the aspect of correspondent banking relationship, what does it mean for small island developing states like Grenada or OECS? And secondly, we've seen a dramatic increased growth from the credit union sector, in Grenada in particular. What does it mean for banking in terms of, because we know there's a difference in terms of the services that a credit union can provide and that of a bank in terms of checking facilities and so forth. How do you see these developments and others that are happening, and what it would mean for investments and depositors and people doing business with the bank in general?
let's look first at the changes in the banking sector.
Yeah.
With the what you call it, the international banks have been leaving. Everything has good and bad. Any change has good and bad. But on balance, I think the change where the international banks are leaving, I think there are more benefits than more credits than negatives. Let me say what I'm saying. The biggest fear and concern I have is the correspondent banking problem, where the correspondent banks overseas have been putting pressure on all these little Caribbean indigenous banks with regard to their relationship. And you cannot live, a bank cannot provide you the quality, not just the quality, but the type of service. Because our economies are so open, you need that international link for the transfer of payments backward and forward. And that is my biggest concern. But on the other hand, because the indigenous banks are becoming bigger, right? They're becoming bigger because they are consolidating all around. It puts them in a better position to negotiate with those big correspondent banks. Because one of the things that the correspondent bank said is risk. This is a little bank in the Caribbean. I might earn $100,000 from that bank for the year. But if I make a mistake, money laundering, etc., or that little bank makes a mistake, I'm subject to fines of millions and millions of dollars. So I'm sitting up there and say, the regulatory agencies could fine me $20 million for doing business with a little bank sitting in the Caribbean that I only own $100,000 from. Right. What does that risk analysis say? If that bank in the Caribbean is bigger and the earnings are bigger, you're in a slightly better position. One, to negotiate with the correspondent bank. Two, to put the procedures, to afford the procedures in place to make sure that I do not make any of those errors with regard to money laundering, etc. Because those compliance issues, they're very expensive to put in place. There's new technology, new training, blah, 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 blah. So the bigger the bank gets, the more they have the resources to make sure they can put those things in place, not to make those errors that will cause the correspondent. So while there's a fear there, a concern there, a legitimate concern, there is some. The other concern you have is competition. There are some islands in which you only have 2 banks. That is a serious concern. Grenada have 3 banks. Most of the other banks have 3 and 4 banks still. Even though you have that consolidation, you still have several banks. So the concern would be for when the banking sector is reduced to 1 or 2. And therefore, what is the competition? Because competition benefits everybody. But on the other hand, you have the ownership of the financial sector moving more and more to the Caribbean. And in every developed country, the ownership of the financial sector resides to a large extent in that country. They have others. But you have a lot of your ownership in the financial sector within your country. And I think that is a benefit. Your dividends stay home. So there's good and there's bad, but I am on balance optimistic.
Right.
With regard to the credit unions have got bigger and bigger. And therefore, the concern has to be to make sure that the regulatory part, and the credit unions don't like to hear this, they get angry with you for it, I don't know why. The banks are well regulated and fully regulated. The credit unions need to be regulated to the same degree. That, to me, that's just, par for the course. But it is a good thing because the credit unions are locally owned. So if they're getting bigger, hopefully they have a better understanding of the needs of the people of the country than an international bank. So if they have a larger part of the pie, hopefully our citizens will be better served. I mean, those are so I have no negative feeling or think there's anything bad because the credit unions are getting.
Should they be given the same rights as traditional banks? Because they are appealing to the central bank.
They say no. They say no. The banks say yes. We have to see how that works out. We have to see how that works.
Well, I mean, as a past credit union person, president, and so on, I think the issue too is there is a certain amount of regulation within the credit union. There is. And some of the bigger credit unions have compliance departments to monitor things with AMTL and so on. So there is that, and that has come over in recent times. But I think the major concern for the bank, traditional banking sector, is the level of regulation that ECCB imposes on the banking and versus the non-bank. And credit unions fall in the non-bank. And the philosophy of credit unionism is quite different to banks. So there is this tussle and so on. But credit unions are now moving into things, areas that traditionally they weren't. So take, for example, commercial lending. That was an area almost exclusive to the financial banks, traditional banks. Credit unions are now moving into that area and getting bigger into the area. But so if you decide to get there, you have to decide that the regulations must be tighter. Because it not only threatens the sector, financial sector, it also threatens the credit union as a business. Yeah. Because one bad commercial loan, and my friend from the banking sector can tell you, when you have to take that hit, right, and that loan goes bad, what it can do to your portfolio and the profitability and the risk and so on. So there's a lot more that needs to be considered when you decide you want to dabble into other areas that you traditionally were not into. And the training, as Pointy will tell you, that is involved, how you train your loan officers, how to assess risk. There's a lot more. Pointy could go more detail. But I think that's where the credit unions will be challenged. And ECCB, as the chief regulator for banks, and not having a say in the non-bank, I think we're going to get to a point where the non-bank sector has to come under the ambit of ECCB to some degree. Because they cannot, this risk, and this is a OECS risk, you know. Remember, the credit union movement in Grenada is a now $1 billion business. In the OECS, it's even greater, right? They account for billions of dollars in our financial space. So they're not a small player.
Right.
And any major systemic risk that comes in the credit union will affect all of us, banking and non-bank. So that regulation has to come from a ECCB type organization that says, no guys, if you decide to play here and your influence, we now have to be paying closer attention to your policies and your other things that needs to be looked at.
Maybe that can be one of our post-COVID changes. The fact that financial services in the region, you know, they're placed on the central bank, so the Barbados Central Bank, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and that sort of thing. You know, maybe those are some of the innovations that need to happen because our way of living is changing.
But the growth of the credit union is a good thing.
Of course, absolutely.
And I don't know why they are so concerned about the regulatory part of it. It is a good thing. You're getting bigger and bigger. You have a bigger, larger slice of the pie, and you will get an even larger slice. And that what will come with that is regulation, and that is pretty standard and to be expected in environment.
It's a protection for the consumer.
One of our areas, Mr. Archibald, and it is so big to the GDP of the country, tourism. And with all the challenges, I mean, the threats and the opportunities we've had with the pandemic, and of course, globalization in general, if you had to suggest anything based on where we are now, what advice would you give on some of the shifts and some of the things we should make and some of the things we should continue to do as it relates to our tourism product?
One of the things I would like to see is an improvement in the number and quality of our the small businesses that are linked to tourism, the tour operators. Take Annandale Waterfall, that kind of thing. And those, in my mind, should largely be owned by locals.
Right.
We need to have those types of businesses, those types of spots where the tourists go to, improved significantly. And I'm seeing a significant improvement. And I'd like to draw that to one in Annandale. When we talk about tourism, we tend to think of the hotels. But there's so much more in tourism and so many linkages. Look at the linkage to agriculture, which to me keeps being forgotten. The better the tourism sector does, the better the agricultural sector will do.
Say that again.
And you hear, but
because we pit one against the other. We don't realize.
I don't buy into that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
The agricultural sector benefits anytime the tourism sector improves.
Absolutely.
What we want to ensure that it benefits more.
Correct.
That we increase what is bought from the local agricultural sector by the hotels. You would be surprised when the hotels are in full going and you go down there and you see the truck there, small, I don't know if you call it a small farm, arrive with their pickup, loaded with produce, and the hotel take it all. Somehow we don't see that.
Right, and if they just, and conversely, the hotels have been out of business for a good year.
And the
So
farmers-
speak to those same farmers, and they will tell you their situation. Yeah.
What we have to make sure is that they improve their technology and the way they do their farming, so they can produce the crop year round. They can produce it at a particular standard. So when they go to the hotels, everything is bought because they brought it to the certain standard. But not only agriculture, the arts and crafts, the entertainment, and the other bits.
Transportation, yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that is where we need to improve.
We talk about a blue economy. We need to improve the orange economy. It's entertainment, experiences,
Is that
and all
the
orange economy.
Yeah.
Culture and
Okay.
entertainment and all of that. So I see where you're going with the experiential part of the tourism.
Yeah,
I just saw somebody did a really a nice thing in Monlong. It's by the riverside,
That's right.
and
Saw
so
that
on. You can
over
go
the
out
weekend.
and
Is that right?
so I'm excited
Yeah.
to go there. Yeah. So we're now having all these
Unique.
developed. So we must congratulate, the
Commercialization
GTA
of the
and the tourism authority and so on
Commercialization of the sites.
who are doing
Well, that is what that
commercialization.
is where I'm looking for and hoping to see a lot of.
Yes.
Think about flowers. Just think about flowers for a moment. When you go into the hotels, there are all these vases of flowers in the hotel room, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, but
It's our.
I'm hearing that
Yeah.
sometimes we don't have enough.
We
Yeah,
don't
we-
have
we
enough.
I'm
That is
hearing
correct.
that.
There was a yacht pulled in here one time 2 years ago, one of these big fancy yachts, and the guy decided he was going to shop. He wanted fish, he wanted flowers, he couldn't get it.
Couldn't get enough.
He couldn't get enough, and so he went somewhere else and got it.
Yeah.
So there's these linkages, these commercialization of all these other aspects of tourism is where I would like to see. And you have two big tourism projects. I don't know if they're going to come on stream or when they're going to come on stream. But supposing they do, that pushes your demand up considerably for agricultural produce, for fishing produce, for all these other commercialization of these other
Right.
issues.
Having said that, though, we really at we at a point where we either go this way or we just
Level up.
right. So what do we do to prepare our people and all of the people? Because sometimes around Grenada, you get the impression that okay, some of you, all right, go so, but all of our people,
Brenda, I don't.
you don't know.
At least he's honest.
One of my biggest concerns right now is the division.
I tell you.
Not only our divisiveness has got worse. I don't have an answer. I'm just concerned.
Right.
We have always been divided on matters of politics and religion. The political divide has got to a level that is an abyss. What's the right word? It is now a chasm.
Yeah.
And that to me is a real problem. And on top of that political divide, we are getting confrontational. So I have an opinion, whereas before Chris said, well, I agree with you, and we make a little thing and we disagree, and we go our way, and next morning we drink a rum. We seem to be going past that now, where if I have an opinion and you don't agree with it, I want to get up and come in your face.
Correct.
Yeah.
And even if I am talking to you and the topic is difficult, or I have to get something from you that may be challenging, that I just can't sit and look you in the eye and ask you. I have to bang at
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because unless I'm doing this, then I'm doing nothing.
You know, this requires leadership. And unfortunately, to answer your question, it requires leadership. Unfortunately, in this little island, when we think of leader, we think only of the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition.
That's true.
At every step in our society, there are leaders.
Correct.
In every sector of our society, there are leaders.
Correct.
But what we have in Grenada, not leaders, are people in leadership positions who are not acting as leaders. We have more followers in positions of leadership.
who simply go with the mass, simply go with the noise, and do not try to say to their people, look, maybe we should consider this, maybe we should consider that, maybe this might be a better option. So we are lacking in leaders. We are full of people in leadership positions who are not acting as leaders. And we have to stop thinking of leaders as just the prime minister and the leader of the opposition. Around the prime minister of any government, there's a set of ministers who are leaders.
Correct.
In the credit unions, there are leaders. In the business community, in the bank, there are leaders. Supervisors are leaders. You have the religious leaders. My concern is that those leaders are not leading, and they are just following. They are just going where the biggest noise is, where is the easiest road to follow. And that's what my concern is in trying to answer your question. The leaders have to lead. The leaders of every sector, every level, every group, whether it's political, whether it is agricultural cooperative, the business leaders. I am very disappointed in our business leaders. We are very quiet. Mm-hmm. We just kind of...
Why? You think people might be concerned about their own... It's a lot of adjusting,
I know.
Yeah. Why do you think they're quiet?
I think our focus is in the wrong place.
Oh, okay.
If the country does better, we do better.
Correct.
And when you start thinking that way, then you start thinking differently. Mm-hmm. If the country settles down and does better, who's going to do better? Mm-hmm. Whether you are NNP or NDC, you're going to most likely do better.
But we're all Grenadians.
We are all Grenadians.
I put it this way, yeah? That
I'm sorry, if I sounded a little passionate, but
I'm a passionate person. I like passion.
Yeah, I was going to say that it occurred to me that some people believe that get elected for 5 years, that if you're in the opposition, development don't take place, it stops. And so you should stay back, you should not get involved. But I promote the fact that regardless of the party in office, we should all get on board and believe that development continues. That we don't sit down and wait for 5 years for another change, but we get on board and work with whoever forms the government.
I try to live my life that way.
Yeah,
I've been talking about the fact that I was recently elected today.
And
I have two sorts of reactions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my philosophy is, and I have served on boards for NNP, for NDC, for GNP, for the revolution. Mm-hmm. Because my view is, if I have something to offer, I have a skill and knowledge, a training and expertise. And a government says, listen, Mr. Archibald, we know you have this sort of knowledge, background, expertise. Yeah. Can you serve on here? I'm going to do it.
It's important.
Yeah, that's what we all should be doing.
Yeah. And that's
where I vote is my business.
Correct.
Yeah. And that has nothing to do with where I vote.
Yeah.
And each election, the political parties have to earn my vote.
Yeah.
You don't know where I'm going to vote, and you have to earn it by what you put out to the public, by the way you behave, by your vision for the country, etc.
So just to switch on the politics rather quickly. Seeing that you've gone there. I am of the view that, it's important for politicians to earn our vote.
Yeah, you have to earn
I believe that one of the ways is not just through manifestos, but engage them in good debate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have our politicians, our leadership in the political movements have not always wanted to debate.
Yeah.
And I think this is something we should push and encourage.
Yeah.
Have a leaders debate, you can have a lower level, whatever. But the point is, if you're putting up yourself to lead this country politically and otherwise, and your party has certain convictions of where they want to take the country, you must be questioned about it. Mm-hmm. And you must face difficult questions and respond to it so people could say, that guy talking a lot of nonsense or this lady making sense. Do you believe that is the way we need to take
I
this?
believe every politician must face the public, must face questions. Whether the question is in a debate with another politician, there's another issue in my mind.
Yeah.
You must be able to sit in front of the press. The press doesn't ask hard questions.
Hard enough.
Hard enough questions.
Yeah.
By the way, congratulations on last night. Must face You cannot say you want to lead. You cannot say you want to win without facing questions from your constituents. And they must go out there. There must be periods where the constituents say, well, Mr. Minister, I want that, so and so and so. And that must be there. That doesn't automatically equate to a debate in my mind. I'm a very poor debater. So therefore, I'm always a little hesitant when it comes to debates because it's a skill.
You may have an economic policy you want to introduce.
You must be able to defend it.
Exactly, that's my point. And you must be able to defend it from the point of view that it makes sense to the person. Because when we talk about politics and economy, my thing is every Caribbean country has the same economy. Either tourism, agriculture, and infrastructure, education, services and services. It's the same. All of us have the same. And we react to the external environment basically the same way because everything, we are net importers of everything. So if you come in to talk about politics to me and how you want to transform Grenada economy, what is it that you're planning to transform? Can't come and tell me about corruption and this and that. We tired to hear that. What we want to hear is forward going. What is it you're going to do to make tourism better? What is it you're going to do to put investment into the country and get free monies into the country? How is it that we're going to? So I'm just saying that we need to change the narrative.
I agree.
And that narrative must come from us asking them to. I'm happy that young people are getting into politics. I'm happy to see what is happening on the landscape. But I want to test what you're putting forward, and I want you to answer my questions, hard questions.
I have a problem with people who say to me they're not going to vote. I am going to vote. I feel it's a commitment to my country to vote, but you have to earn my vote. So I'm telling you I'm going to vote, but you have to make sure that I vote for you. You, the politician, whether you're NDC or NNP or whoever, you have to make sure that I feel that you are the best of what is available. You might be the best of the best, because we don't have the best of the best, but the best of what is available. So I could vote one way this time, I could vote another way another time, based on what is before me and how you have handled the questions and the discussions of what you plan to do with this country.
But again, it is that what you gentlemen are saying, that's ideally how it should be, but that is not how it is. Because what has happened is that the division again, and somebody asked this question of me recently, and I said, give me some time to think about it. And they laughed. They said, well, you just could say an answer in May. I said, no, I need some time to think about it. And yes, I went away and I was thinking about it. And it came to me when I was reading a book that our system, our Westminster system, elections, an election is a competition.
It is a competition.
We have a competition to decide who takes care of the people's business. Whenever you set competitions up, what happens? The people for and against. Once you set up a for and against scenario, to me you are entering into with a different sorts of energy. So, this might sound, Brenda is a dreamer. Yes, I am. And all of that. But I think the more we examine a lot of the things, the way our Westminster system is, the way, the governance structure is set up, the way we choose our leaders, the way the people get to represent the people, all of that. I mean, those processes create a certain reaction and a certain behavior.
Accepted.
And I think
debate with you without fighting with you.
That's
well,
right.
hopefully, I don't know.
Competition, you have to be fair.
There's competition and competition. I could run a race. Look at athletics. We run a race, but there are rules and regulations.
Correct.
I can't trip you.
Correct.
And win the race.
Correct.
So I'm saying, yes, it sets up this competitive environment. I don't have an issue with the competitive environment. I'm just thinking that we have taken it to a level that is no longer beneficial to the country.
Correct.
That's where I'm going.
Correct.
And anybody, if you notice, anybody who does something, anybody who acts, attracts a whole lot of criticism. The doers are always criticized by the non-doers and the idlers. Who do you stone? Who do people stone? They stone the ripe fruit, Think about that for a moment. Fruits that are damaged or the green fruits.
But they pick the green fruits at the same time.
So they stole the right, and the doers are always, doers make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you're a doer, by the very
Yeah.
nature of things,
Yeah.
because you're a doer, you're going to make errors. And you have the non-doers who just sit there and spend their whole time attacking the doers.
Well, that's their contribution to the doing.
But the point is important, though. I mean, Chris, you recall...
Which is minuscule.
Chris, you recall a couple of elections ago, we were working on a national debate. We worked, we prepared questions. We did a lot of work and then come off. So, Chris, understand the point
We had one
you're
last
making.
time. We had one last time around.
But I think you know, the junction meeting is still important, but we have to mix this with structured debates, you know, and this is where we can put community centers into useful purposes,
I mean,
and even using social media now.
we call it town hall meetings now,
town hall
where they
meetings.
meet with the
So-
various things and they answer questions. Nothing is wrong
So this
with
is
that. And
important.
that is something
We
that
can
we
move
want
on.
to
I think
encourage.
that kind of thing I would encourage a lot.
You understand? But
You
the
can
one
start
point I
that
want to
stage and
make,
tell me what you want to tell me, I will answer my question.
Because
Yeah.
this is the thing about it is that going back to human again, at the end of the day is how people feel about people and how people receive what you're saying based on how you engage them. And it depends on your engagement style and so on, and how they would react in a certain way to it. And I mean, as a young girl, I saw how that worked very, very well when Prime Minister Bishop went out and sat down with people and spoke about things
But
to
Brenda
them
wasn't only Prime Minister
and got them
Bishop.
everybody.
A lot of the other
Correct.
leadership within the revolution were always out there.
That's correct.
Facing the public.
Because in the pioneers, the youth leaders came to us because we were pioneers. And then you had the people doing the same in the NYO, in the NWO, the National Women's Organizations. And you had all these people engaging in a way with people. I mean, we've lost that. Everybody go home, they close their gates, and they're on their tablet, they're on their phone, you know, looking for the next bacchanal, so to
if you
speak.
lose it, you change to social media.
Yeah.
And,
so we have to, I think,
I
at
have
the end
very
of the
serious
day,
concerns about social media.
Yeah.
no, it's on
young
you.
people.
I mean, that's where we go to. I love it. That's where we go. No, I do. I seriously do.
Yeah.
That's where we go to for information and for me, a lot of entertainment, right? So we have to. It has to be a critical component in anything we do now. We're just not going to get away from it. But at the end of the day, who we are, how God made us, or whatever you believe in, Allah, Jehovah, Buddha, whatever, how we were made, the energies we transmit human to another, that will never be lost. And so if we do not capitalize on that in whatever endeavor of life, we ain't gonna get nowhere.
But that is where leaders and leadership come in. And that is where I think we have fallen down. Again, we think of leaders only as the leader of the government and the leader of the opposition. We have leadership positions where we should have leaders scattered throughout our society, and they are not leaders. They are not leaders. They are simply taking the easy way out rather than leading. Leading involves making hard decisions. It involves telling your people, you see, this way, you might like this way, the easy way, but that's not the best way. It involves giving people options and helping to guide them. And we are not doing that. Our leaders are not doing that.
Well,
and we keep saying,
Sure, one
the Prime
final
Minister and
thing
the
too.
leader of the opposite. They're not the only leaders in the place.
Our young people, you spoke about a young lady that ordered the food and got it home to you. Were you thinking in the old way?
Yes.
Our young people are not going to sit by and accept this. I have a young people in my house, and when we talk politics, the first thing they say, well, I am not impressed with what is being put forward. You know, I want to hear what our leaders have to say about this issue and that issue. And whether they get the information via social media or through a public forum, or they go to a political party thing, event, they are into what exactly it is you saying for me to get me the next 10 years in Grenada in a certain way and a country. they are not going to accept this nonsense that you and I accepted long ago, where we
Because
dance
the
and fit and so on.
the generation of the ites are dying. The generation of
I think
where
young
your family were Garyites. And the rest of the family was
but you
supposed
see,
to be
our young
Garyites.
people are more
Nobody wants to do
exposed
it, but that's where I'm going. We are
More
more
exposed to-
enlightened.
exactly.
We are more enlightened.
So,
we are
as
more
Pointy is saying, that
educated.
leadership thing you're talking about
We
has
have our
to
own
change.
opinions.
Because these are the people that in the next generation, you and I have to sit down and look at and see what they're doing. But
But at the same
that
time, if they want to be
offer has
our
to change.
leaders, we have to be careful as well.
No,
And
I
how,
agree.
you
But
know, yeah.
our young people are not going to sit by and just accept the traditional. And that is the challenge, I think.
I don't know that
all of us as
anybody
leaders
young,
have to face.
I don't know that in this new dispensation of the world, that anybody is accepting what obtained prior 2019.
We still have it.
Pre-COVID.
As our Pointy is saying.
Same, yeah.
The family businesses are example.
Yeah, now business people, there's a lot of new ideas coming through in business here in Grenada, but there's still too many of our business community who still thinking pre-2019. So to go back to our original discussion, what you really want to say to them is stop thinking pre-2019. And start thinking of where your new environment, your new community.
Fear of change is a
Mindset,
real
mindset.
thing.
The hardest part will be the human adjustment
Yeah.
to everything that is happening.
Fear of change is a real thing.
And it's a very, very real thing.
Yeah.
Right? And chaos.
We are creatures of habit.
Chaos.
And we don't like to be upended and so
Chaos.
on.
I'm a creature of habit, but I want change.
When you say chaos, when you say chaos brings good, it's a hard thing to do. But out of chaos, out of melee, quite often comes significant change.
True.
Not only that, significant opportunities.
An opportunity. That's
in
what I
chaos.
was
There was
opportunities.
there was when Timothy Antoine just became the governor of a central bank. I looked at him. He gave a sermon at a church in St. Kitts, and I remember him saying the sermon. I forget which part of the Bible it came from, but at the end it was really showing, and he used the term, "Out of mess comes your magic." And I never forgot that, and it's true. It's because things must become a little messy or disruptive. Sarge, but you know about disruptive leadership. You engage on that and so forth. So out of mess comes magic, but you have to find the magic in the mess or change the mess into magic. But if in between the mess and the magic, if there's no will, if there's no passion, if there's no harmony, if there's none of that, then it's just words.
Unfortunately, we had to have higher consequences to be good. Guyana went through that.
Yeah.
The most creative the Guyanese people ever became was when they had the stresses of the Burnham government.
Yeah.
And they have seen the benefits of that up to today. But it's unfortunate as a people, as leaders, have to go through difficult times to really bring out the creativity and
Maybe that's
energy
what
in
we were
ourselves.
made to do.
So.
Mr. Campbell?
Yeah.
Maybe.
COVID have done that.
I'm listening to the conversation, but I think, Ponty, the next time we have you, I want to look closely at...
We should come back next week after the
I
budget.
Ponty, but what I want to look at is how can small business, and I'm linking youth here, can help with the alleviation of poverty in our rural communities, What are the business opportunities there, really? Because we can, it's no longer turning to government for employment,
That's correct.
A lot of it is falling, and how is the financial sector can support and respond to this? Yeah. I think this is a conversation we need to have, because I think it is dire, and there's some initiatives taking place, but I'd like to hear more about that and how we explore this a bit more.
It'd be nice to have you back after budget on Friday.
The financial sector
probably could have you and someone else.
Certainly changing how they do.
Why you avoid the budget discussions?
I find they don't lead anywhere.
Yeah.
From as far back as I could remember, I've avoided the budget discussion.
Okay.
I have taken part.
Right.
But I have avoided because I find they don't lead. I am for the budget or against the budget. I'm for the government or against the government.
Yeah. That's where the discussion goes.
But I have never debated the budget that way. So you need to listen to me the next time.
We will.
I have never debated.
Yeah, but
the
in a
budget
general sense, he's correct. That's how the discussions pan out.
Yeah,
because even people that you bring on, they say, an economist or whatever, it depends on what their convictions are, how they feel about a particular government. That's the way they go. Instead of just providing.
I have economists said to me privately, and disagree with it because they disagree.
It's
with
politics,
government.
Yeah.
That's
As I said,
the
not from the heart.
environment in which we live.
It's not from the heart.
That's the environment in which we exist. Regrettably so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a great week. What's coming up this week, Senator Allie? You know, I always want to know what you're doing in the week before I see you next Monday. I know Mrs. Daly takes care of the in-between, but I always want to know in the week.
I have a lot happening with me during the week.
Oh, okay.
I'll be very busy.
Good.
Very busy. Apart from budget, I'll be very busy.
Yeah.
Right,
Another
okay.
action. You know, my business supposed to be doing well at this time because I said the
True.
last
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
Joy
I'm not
and colour.
promoting, but
Yeah.
bringing color into
Joy
your
and
life.
colour,
But
Exactly.
yes.
Color. Yeah.
so we're
Color.
busy with all the challenges at Point. You mentioned
Yeah.
logistics, this, that, and all.
Yeah.
So we're busy
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
make sure we have products for our customers. Who, you know,
Please, yes.
So keeps me busy.
Yeah,
I'm out
good.
of trouble.
Mr. Campbell?
That's great. Well, this week, well, we know we're in project implementation a lot.
Right.
And we're preparing for a mission, but it's on Zoom, which is good. So with these missions, you need reports and updates, looking at your numbers, your deliverables, and this kind of analysis. So I think the staff would be involved in a lot of this kind of work.
You think
So
you'll ever leave that type of work?
huh?
You think you'll
It's
ever
in
leave?
my head like projects, you know. It's like, but what I like there though that and I mean, look, you know what gives me hope, Ponty and Grenada, is the quality of our young people in terms of their
Oh, yes.
motivation, their
I have
skills,
plenty hope
their
with it.
qualification. That gives me hope.
Yeah.
We are in a good way when I look at this.
We're in a
you know?
good place with it.
Absolutely, I'm impressed. So my role is kind of creating the kind of platform and kind of wisdom, and they're good. They're smart. It puts me in a
Yeah.
position where I can withdraw
great.
with grace.
To
yeah.
go and
Keep
swim,
doing that.
Swim longer distances.
Absolutely,
Keep
absolutely.
doing that. Yeah.
So
Mr.
that's a good
Archibald,
thing.
before you leave, I know you mentioned, so it seemed like you looked at the our engagement with the Prime Minister last evening.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on it?
I thought there were some good questions. Last night. And I'd like to see more of that actually.
What about the answers?
Huh?
That is the
Yeah.
important thing, the answers.
The answers were quite good, I thought, actually.
Okay.
There's sometimes, depending on the question, that you went around.
All politicians. do.
Yeah.
All politics, they went
Yeah.
wrong. There was
Yeah.
a question Brenda asked that he went wrong, and I laughed to myself because he was going wrong. But all politicians do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about on balance.
Yeah.
Was a reasonable engagement on balance. I think.
Very good. I didn't see it.
I
but,
would like to
look
see
at it.
those things open to any media representative who wants to come.
And that's the point I was making earlier.
Any media
Where
representative.
our
I
Prime
think-
Minister was
I think-
posed with good questions
Yeah, there was some
and,
good
and
questions.
searching questions.
Yeah.
And how he answered and so on obviously influences and impacts all of us as we move forward.
Yeah, I think
On choice.
he has done this engagement for the last year. It was not a press conference. It was because really the people there his engagement yesterday was with those of us who host current affairs programs and other
Oh,
talk
okay,
shows,
okay,
right?
okay.
What he has had during the year.
It wasn't open to the
He
media
had
per
what
se.
he'd been having is engagements with the media. So there was 4 before this, where he engaged journalists, reporters, newspaper, radio, independents.
okay,
So there were a couple. I think for every engagement, he had either 4 or 5 people in there. So I think ours yesterday was either the 4th or the 5th.
Okay.
Right? So he's like seeing different people. That apart from the regular, because when you call a press conference, right, what you haven't done is engage a press corps. And that could run the gamut of the press.
Well, I
and then the
misunderstood.
Prime Minister, no, because it was billed like that. So that's
Yeah.
how everybody took it.
Yeah.
So then what the Prime Minister does, then a press conference, questions come left, right, and center
Yeah.
on various issues. And but in our conversations, we had the conversations with them. And of course you have questions. And at this time, there were things that the public wants to know, that was ours. But no matter what, when you go out there, it's always competition again. So the question become a competition. Who's there become a competition or whatever. But that's what those engagements were.
The succession question was quite interesting.
Everyone seems to think.
Yeah.
And all you get from me is a laugh. Thank you so very much, and thank you for sharing with us, and really, really appreciate it. Congratulations again, and best wishes in your new stick. You have lots of work to do for us at Greenlink. Lots of work. Lots of work. Thanks everyone. That's our program. On behalf of everyone here, Nathan Benjamin, he provided our professional streaming services. Curlon Dragon was our cameraman this morning. Blondell George, our director. Our executive producer, Richie Oliver. I am Brenda Baptiste. Have a great day and have a great week. Budget day is Friday. Yes, Friday of this week. So until next Monday, we'll have some perspectives on that. Bye-bye.